Alright guys, today we have more PlayStation news to go over and discuss. We have quite a few topics to cover in this video as usual, so before we get into it, do me a favor, if you do enjoy these types of videos, or if by the end of it you found it informative, make sure you leave it a like. It really helps these videos out more than you know, and if you are new to the channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button as well. The first topic we're discussing is the latest PlayStation 5 firmware update, and how according to Digital Foundry, it actually improves performance of the console and actually improves the performance of some games. So this is reading from PlayStation Lifestyle, and it says the folks over at Digital Foundry have discovered that the latest PlayStation 5 system software update makes some video games perform slightly better. Digital Foundry discovered this change by chance while testing the revised PS5, which became the subject of much debate due to its smaller heatsink. Turns out the smaller heatsink makes no difference. During their test, Digital Foundry noted that their launch PS5 was performing slightly better than their revised PS5. Upon investigation, the team found that the older hardware was running the latest firmware, whereas the revised PS5 wasn't. Once they updated the revised PS5's firmware, both consoles performed identically. That's when Digital Foundry set out to test some games and noticed, that Control and Devil May Cry 5 were running a couple of percentage points faster in some scenarios with the new firmware. And this is a direct quote from Digital Foundry's Richard Ledbetter. He says, "I benchmarked Control in graphics mode with its photo mode FPS unlock, Devil May Cry 5 Special Edition in ray tracing mode, Godfall and Resident Evil Village. Control and DMC5 do not vary by more than 1% on a run-by-run basis, and yet the new firmware runs those two titles 2 to 3% faster than before. A curious state of affairs. Resident Evil has dynamic elements that adjust performance slightly each time, while I saw no change at all in Godfall. I'm wondering whether it's perhaps a system-level ray tracing optimization. A couple of percentage points in select scenarios is hardly game-changing, but intriguing nonetheless." And it is worth noting that Sony did not put this in the official patch notes that they released. They did not mention anything about a performance improvement with certain games, but it's very interesting to see this because it does kind of make you wonder if this is something that we can expect going forward with these big firmware updates that the PS5 is going to receive. Is it possible that they're going to be able to continue to, boost performance with certain games in certain scenarios? I think the better question is, will we end up seeing some performance updates that are more significant than this? Because while this is great, I mean, hey, getting a performance boost, even if it is by 2 to 3%, that's nice, right? It's not really something you're going to notice unless you're actively looking for it. So I do wonder if in the future we'll ever see a firmware update that really brings some noticeable performance in a more significant way. I'm not necessarily expecting that, but then again, I don't think anybody was expecting this either. So I saw people mentioning this, and I've even seen people saying that to them it feels like the UI and just the navigation of the UI of the PlayStation 5 and the operating system overall feels smoother. It feels faster. And so it seems like this firmware update is bringing some, pretty significant improvements across the board. Obviously, we went over all of the major improvements and updates, but we're also getting these kind of smaller updates that maybe we didn't even know were there until they were pointed out. So, pretty cool. You can let me know what you guys think of that, but we're moving on to the next topic, which is definitely something we have to talk about because people made a very big deal about this, and I don't know how many of you remember, it wasn't that long ago, but there was a lot of internet outrage regarding the CMOS battery inside of the PlayStation 4, and it turns out that with the latest PS4 system software update, it actually fixes this problem. Now, I'm hoping that we'll see just as many people covering it and talking about it now that the problem has been fixed, because I'll tell you, there was way more outrage than I would have expected to see over something like this, and I honestly thought people were maybe blowing it a little bit out of proportion. Like, I could understand why people were upset about this and why they felt like it needed to be taken seriously, and clearly it was taken seriously by Sony, which is a good thing. This is only a good thing now that it's fixed, But again, the way some people were acting, it's like I couldn't really agree with them because they just seem to be going off the deep end. But anyway, this is once again reading from PlayStation Lifestyle, and it says last week the PlayStation 4 received its latest system software update. First reported by Destruction Games on Twitter, the update has seemingly fixed the CMOS issue that was preventing PS4 console owners from playing disc and digital games if the internal clock battery had died. Several people now have been able to play disc and digital games on PS4 consoles with a dead battery since the update was installed. The issue began when players discovered that if the console's internal clock battery died, this prevented them from playing both digital and disc games offline. Because of the way the trophy system has been set up, as long as players could connect to the PlayStation Network, then this wouldn't be an issue. But if Sony was ever to shut down the servers for PS4, the console would eventually stop playing games altogether. This would also affect PlayStation 3 and PlayStation 5 consoles to a lesser extent. Sony had promised that they were working on a solution for the problem, and it seems like System Software 9.0 has solved the issue with some caveats. Destruction Games reported that disc games could now be played without crashing at startup. He could also earn trophies, although these would not have a date or timestamp, instead having a blank space where these would be displayed. He also claimed other people had tested the system with digital games, and these had worked too, although this was something he hadn't tested himself. And so, you know, I thought that this was something we should discuss here briefly, and I should just make everybody aware that, you know, if you were an individual who, you know, looked at this and thought it was a big problem and Sony needed to do something about it, you can rest easy now knowing that Sony has solved this problem for the PS4. I assume they're going to do the same thing for the PS5 at some point. It's anybody's guess if they're going to, you know, try to fix it for the PS3. I wouldn't expect that. But, you know, the PS4 I think was the big concern because, you know, the PS4 is really where, you know, Sony's still supporting it in a significant way, but at some point, eventually, Sony's going to shut down the servers for PS4. You know, it's going to happen at some point. And so, you know, people, I guess, were just not feeling very good with the idea that when that day comes, even if it is like way in the distant future, you know, your console's essentially going to become a brick. You can't play physical or digital games. So it is somewhat understandable. But again, it's one of these things where it's nice that Sony is listening. I'm glad that they decided to fix this because I honestly think that this was something where they could have just said, well, you know, this is just the way it is, and we are not going to shut down the PS4 servers anytime soon, so you don't have to worry about it. But instead of doing that, they're like, you know what, we'll just put it with this 9.0 update. And so, yeah, it's a good thing. As I said, I think some people were really blowing this a little bit out of proportion when it came out, and I just hope that those people who were doing that, you know, also come out and talk about it again now that it's been fixed. But yeah, I think it's good news. So anybody, as I said, who was worried about this, you don't have to worry anymore. Even when the day comes, whenever that day comes, when Sony's done with the PS4 servers and they get shut down and the PS4 stores shut down and all that stuff, you will still be able to use your PlayStation 4 and play your physical and digital games. So yeah, leave your thoughts down below about this situation. We're moving on from that and talking about Kenna Bridge of Spirits, and we're specifically focusing on the Platinum Trophy. Before I get into it though, I want anybody who is listening to this, who is playing Kenna Bridge of Spirits, to leave your thoughts on the game down below. What has your experience with Kenna Bridge of Spirits been like so far? This is a game that I think has, you know, been highly anticipated, and people were feeling a little bit nervous that review scores were coming out so late, or the day of launch. Seems like it's reviewing really well. So I'll be interested to see what you guys had to say, but I just want to let you know that if you are going for the Platinum Trophy for this title, according to PowerPicks, which is a very popular, you know, trophy hunting content creator, they create all this content to show you how to get certain trophies. I'm sure many of you are familiar with them. They're claiming it's going to take anywhere between 20 and 25 hours to obtain. So you might want to keep that in mind. It is worth noting that apparently this is going to be skill dependent if you are playing on master difficulty, which makes sense. So, Yeah, let me know if you plan to try to get the Platinum Trophy for Kean Bridge of Spirits, and let me know what you think about it being 20 to 25 hours. Is that shorter than you expected or longer than you expected? I think that sounds like the sweet spot, honestly, 20 to 25 hours for a game like Kean to get a Platinum. It doesn't sound like it's too short, doesn't sound like it's too long. I think it's perfect. But continuing to talk about Kean Bridge of Spirits, I do want to warn anybody on PlayStation 4 who is playing this game that there is a significant bug you want to be aware of. I don't think it's been patched out yet. I'm assuming it will be soon. So this is reading from PlayStation Universe. Apparently the bug has to do with putting on the Torah mask. As reported by a user on Reddit, using the mask appears to render it impossible to remove, locking the game in a first-person perspective and essentially breaking the game. For those unaware, the Torah mask is necessary to progress in the story, so it's not something you can miss out on. And so, yeah, that sounds like a very significant bug. As of right now, or according to this article that I'm reading from, when it was written up, they say that this bug has not been discovered on the PlayStation 5 version. So as far as I'm aware, PS5 players are okay with that. And it says right now the only way to fix it is by reloading your save file. And so I'm sure Ember Lab is already aware of this and they're already working on a fix. But there you go. If you are somebody who is playing on PS4, you know, bear in mind that this is apparently a bug that exists with the Torah mask. So it sounds like it's pretty annoying because it's not something you can avoid. So again, hopefully there will be a patch soon for that. And if there is, I'll obviously let you guys know. But the final topic regarding Kean Bridge of Spirits that I want to go over with you guys has to do with the two different modes that the game offers. There is a quality mode and there is a performance mode, and we have some new details on that for anybody who's interested. And so it says here, reading from PlayStation Universe, IGN has run a detailed performance test of Ember Lab's newly launched Kean Bridge of Spirits on PS4 and PS5. And the good news is that it seems to run pretty solidly regardless of the platform. First up, the game's quality mode sees Kean Bridge of Spirits clocking in at 2160p at 30 frames per second, so that's native 4K. That's what they said it would be. While the game's performance mode runs at 60 FPS with a resolution hitting anywhere between 1800p and 2160p, although the game sticks mostly closer to 1800p. Meanwhile, on the PS4 Pro version of the game, it hits 1152p between 1440p at 30 frames per second, while the standard PS4 edition is anywhere between 810p and 1080p, 30 frames per second. So there you go. If you're choosing to play this game on either console, you have a better idea as to, you know, what exactly it's running at in terms of like resolution and frame rate. Obviously, if you want the best version of the game in every area, you're going to want to play it on PC, but I suspect a lot of people are playing it on console right now. So there you go. Moving on to the next topic, though, we have a little bit of an update in regards to Quantic Dream's Star Wars game that they're apparently working on. It's funny because when I talked about this, I kind of laughed off the idea of like, oh, what are they going to make, like an action RPG, you know, Star Wars game? You know, can anybody realistically see Quantic Dream doing something like that? And as it turns out, according to reports, this game is actually going to be much closer to a traditional action game than maybe you would have expected. And so, reading from WCCF Tech, the recent rumor about a Quantic Dream Star Wars game was corroborated and expanded a few hours ago by Kotaku. According to the publication's sources, this game won't play at all like the usual cinematic-driven titles made by the French studio, where gameplay is practically on rails and heavily relies on QuickTime events or QTEs. The Quantic Dream Star Wars game should feature a more traditional action combat system instead. The design may even include open world and multiplayer elements. That is quite shocking to hear. The newly founded Montreal studio is reportedly pivotal in the making of this project, though other sources contacted by Kotaku mentioned several hurdles, such as Quantic Dream's engine being dated and a certain reluctance by some to focus on gameplay first rather than story. This morning, Tom Henderson also revealed that the Quantic Dream Star Wars game may be getting a teaser soon, courtesy of Unit Image, which they've done trailers for big titles like God of War, Far Cry 6, Call of Duties, Ghost Recon, and the list goes on. So yeah, I mean, this is pretty surprising in my opinion, because I was under the impression when I first heard about this Quantic Dream Star Wars game, I think it's obvious that it's a real project at this point. I mean, these are still just rumors, but I mean, this very much is a case of where there's smoke, there's fire, and I think that, you know, that's kind of undeniable at this point. I was expecting maybe like, hey, this is going to be a Star Wars game with the usual Quantic Dream formula applied to it, but instead it's going to be the exact opposite. This is going to be Quantic Dream making a very different type of game, a more traditional type of game. And I don't know if that's necessarily disappointing or exciting to people. I feel like it depends on who you ask. I think that people who are big fans of the type of games that Quantic Dream makes, they're definitely going to be disappointed because they are, you know, relatively unique. But I also think that there are going to be some people who are excited at, you know, maybe seeing what a studio like Quantic Dream could do with an open world action game. The idea of even having multiplayer, I mean, there's just so many things that they're going to be going for here that, again, I just feel like you wouldn't normally expect from Quantic Dream. So yeah, let me know your thoughts about that down in the comments below. We're moving on to the next topic, which is focusing on some sales data that comes from the UK. And this is something I think at least some of you are going to be interested in. Reading from PlayStation Universe, Arcane Line's time-bending PS5 shooter Deathloop has taken the top spot on the physical UK all-format chart in a week, which has seen PS5 games see a significant increase in sales. Spider-Man Miles Morales saw a massive 223% spike in sales, which saw, you know, it taking second place. Meanwhile, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart jumped to number 4 thanks to a 630% leap in sales, which is insane, while Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut sales spiked by 233%, bringing the game up to number 6. Now, it is worth noting that this is just for physical games in the UK, so obviously it's not necessarily indicative of how these games are performing across, you know, all different regions and all different formats, but I think it does give you a decent idea of like, okay, these games are selling really well. And so I look at the top 10 chart here, you see Deathloop at number 1, Spider-Man number 2, Ratchet at number 4, and Ghost at number 6. I mean, you know, it just continues to prove that Sony is, I guess you could say, right in making this decision to stick to the traditional way of doing things, because it works. You know, people are still okay with it. People are still going out there and buying these games and supporting them. I think it's going to be interesting to see where Deathloop charts when the NPD results come out, because I was kind of under the impression that Deathloop isn't going to sell that well. I don't know why. I just feel like it's not. I, you know, could be wrong. And I think it would be good if I was wrong, because apparently it's a great game. So it's definitely promising to see Deathloop at number 1 here. And yeah, we'll have to see. It's nice, in my opinion, to also see it's nice to see Ghost of Tsushima there as well, because I feel like I don't know if these are individuals who are like double dipping, like they already bought the game on PS4 and they're going to buy it for PS5 again. I think we could be seeing a lot of PlayStation gamers who were like, look, I'm just not going to buy Ghost of Tsushima when it launches. I'm just going to wait till the proper PS5 version comes out. I have to imagine that a lot of these sales, or at least a significant portion of them, are from people who decided to wait. So yeah, definitely interesting data there. But moving on to the next topic, we're talking about Death Stranding Director's Cut once again. It's releasing in just a couple of days. It's launching on September 24th, because those of you who are in the UK, if you're planning to upgrade this game and get the PS5 Director's Cut version, apparently it's only going to cost you £5. So that's actually cheaper than what we were told. At least in the US, you'll be paying $10 US. And so this comes directly from the PlayStation UK Twitter account, where they say, PSA for those asking about the upgrade path for Death Stranding on PS4 to Death Stranding Director's Cut Digital Deluxe Edition on PS5. 1, the upgrade will be available on Friday. 2, it will cost £5. 3, keep on keeping on, which is something they say in the game a lot. So yeah, I think this came as like a pleasant surprise for a lot of people. You know, it's hard to say if this is just going to apply specifically to the UK. It seems like it is. This article says that it would be nice to think that this means other regions could potentially be paying less than expected, but the difference between regions is much more likely due to exchange rate variables, making it more sensible for the upgrade to technically be cheaper in the UK than in other regions. But either way, you know, if you are, again, somebody who is planning to do this, I'm sure this is good news for you. You can let me know down in the comments below if you are planning to pick up Death Stranding Director's Cut on the 24th. Moving on to the final topic of this video, it focuses on Far Cry 6 and how it was recently revealed by Ubisoft that there will be no ray tracing featured on the PS5 and Xbox Series X versions of Far Cry 6, which I think is disappointing news to a lot of people. So this is reading from PlayStation Lifestyle. It says Ubisoft 3D team lead programmer Stephanie Brenham told WCCF Tech during a recent interview that Far Cry 6's PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X versions will not feature ray tracing. Ray tracing in Far Cry 6 is exclusive to PC because on consoles, Ubisoft's objective has been to take advantage of new hardware capabilities, optimizing performance, targeting 4K, and achieving 60 frames per second, for instance, all while ensuring new game features like our dynamic weather system are supported on all platforms. Furthermore, neither of the consoles will get the AMD Fidelity FX Super Resolution, something that has been implemented before on PS5 in Far Cry 6 because Ubisoft partnered with AMD to specifically develop the feature for PC. And so all I really have to say about this is that, yeah, it's slightly disappointing that there won't be any ray tracing on the next-gen versions of Far Cry 6, but I can't really argue with what's being said here. They're prioritizing what they believe are the more important things, such as hitting 4K at a stable 60 frames per second, making sure that, you know, things like their dynamic weather system are working properly and it's not negatively impacting it if they were to try to add ray tracing. Ray tracing to me at this point, while it's great to have, it really doesn't make a big difference to me. I feel like going into these next-gen consoles, it really was one of these like marketing things where it's like, check out ray tracing, and when you see it, you're like, yeah, that looks incredible, that looks awesome. It would be great if every game could feature that at a, you know, high resolution and high stable frame rate. But, you know, these consoles, for as great as they are, they do have their limitations. And so, yeah, you know, I'm okay with it. I think it would have been nice, and I don't know, maybe this is something they'll add in the future where they could offer like a fidelity mode. Again, this seems to be the solution that many developers implement with their games, where it's like you can't necessarily have the best of both worlds in one single way, right? Like you can't have native 4K at 60 FPS with ray tracing. That's just not going to happen, but you can choose, right? Do you want to have ray tracing with a higher frame rate, less resolution, or ray tracing with a higher resolution and less frame rate, so on and so forth. So hopefully that's an option they'll add in the future, but if they don't, it's not that big of a deal. 4K 60 is really what matters to me, and you know, it is a cross-gen game as well, so we do have to take that into account. But you can let me know down in the comments below if this is a big deal to you or not. Let me know if you're even planning on buying or playing Far Cry 6, but that's going to do it for this video, guys. Again, I hope you did find it informative. I hope you did enjoy it. Leave it a like if you did. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Hit the bell notification icon and feel free to share this video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.